Welcome, brave souls, to a collection of spine-chilling stories that unfold in the eerie silence of empty workplaces. Prepare to be gripped by terror as we embark on a journey through the dark and deserted corridors of abandoned buildings and echoing hallways. The abandoned commercial building. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the empty streets, I prepared to embark on another night shift at the abandoned commercial building. Nestled among the urban sprawl, the once thriving hub of commerce now stood as a forgotten relic, its windows boarded up and its halls silent, save for the occasional rustle of wind through broken panes. As I stepped through the imposing entrance, a chill wind greeted me, carrying with it the scent of dust and decay. The building loomed above me, its darkened windows staring down like the empty eyes of a forgotten monument. With a deep breath, I steeled myself for the long night ahead, knowing that I was about to enter a world where the line between reality and nightmare blurred. The first few hours of my shift passed without incident, the only sound breaking the silence being the echo of my footsteps as I made my rounds through the deserted corridors. But as the night wore on, a sense of unease began to creep over me, like a shadow creeping across the floor. It started with subtle things, a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, a whisper drifting through the empty halls, but soon escalated into something more sinister. Shadows seemed to dance on the walls, twisting and contorting in the flickering light, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. With a mounting sense of dread, I continued my patrols, each step echoing through the empty building like a death knell. But as the witching hour approached, the silence was shattered by a blood-curdling scream, tearing through the darkness like a knife. Heart pounding, I raced towards the source of the sound, my flashlight cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. But when I arrived at the scene, there was nothing there, just an empty hallway bathed in the sickly glow of the emergency lights, the echoes of the scream fading into the silence like a dying breath. Trembling with fear, I realized that I was not alone in the abandoned building, that something sinister lurked in the shadows, waiting to drag me into the darkness. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I continued my patrols, each step filled with dread as I braced myself for the horrors that lurked around every corner. The night stretched on, endless and unyielding, a never-ending nightmare from which there was no escape. And as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, I knew that I would never be the same again. That the terrors of the abandoned commercial building would haunt me for the rest of my days, a grim reminder of the darkness that lurks in the forgotten corners of the world. The empty middle school. As twilight descended upon the middle school, I found myself alone amidst the echoing halls and empty classrooms. The last of the teachers had long since departed, leaving me to tend to the building's upkeep in solitude. With broom in hand, I set out on my nightly rounds, the only sound the soft swish of bristles against linoleum. But as I made my way through the deserted corridors, a sense of unease settled over me like a shroud. The empty classrooms seemed to leer at me from behind closed doors, their darkened windows like vacant eyes watching my every move. I quickened my pace, eager to finish my work and escape the oppressive silence that surrounded me. As I ventured deeper into the bowels of the building, the feeling of being watched intensified. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and contorting in the flickering light of the overhead fluorescence. Every creak of the floorboards sent a shiver down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked just beyond the reach of my flashlight. With each passing moment, the tension in the air grew thicker, suffocating me like a heavy blanket. I tried to shake off the feeling, to convince myself that it was just my imagination running wild in the empty corridors. But deep down, I knew that something was terribly wrong, that I was not alone in the middle school, and that whatever lurked in the darkness was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Just as I reached the gymnasium, a sound echoed through the empty halls, a soft, plaintive whimper that sent a chill down my spine. Heart pounding, I followed the sound, my footsteps echoing in the silence like a drumbeat of dread. As I rounded the corner, I came face to face with the source of the noise, a lone figure huddled in the corner, its eyes wide with fear. It was a student, lost and alone in the deserted school, the victim of some cruel twist of fate. With a sigh of relief, I rushed to the student's side, offering comfort and reassurance in the face of the unknown. Together, we made our way out of the school, leaving behind the empty halls and echoing corridors. But as I stepped out into the cool night air, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching us, that we had narrowly escaped a fate far worse than anything I could have imagined. And as I glanced back at the looming silhouette of the middle school, I knew that I would never forget the horrors that lurked within its walls. The Haunted Woman's Gym. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself alone in the dimly lit corridors of the woman's gym. Closing up for the night was always a solitary task. A final sweep of the locker rooms, a check of the empty exercise studios, and then I would be on my way home. But on this particular night, as I prepared to lock up, a chilling cry shattered the silence, sending a jolt of fear coursing through my veins. Heart pounding, I hesitated for a moment, trying to shake off the sense of unease that gripped me. But the cry persisted, echoing through the deserted corridors like a ghostly lament. With a deep breath, I gathered my courage and set out to investigate, the darkness seeming to press in on me from all sides as I made my way into the locker room. The locker room was bathed in shadows, the dim light casting eerie shapes against the tiled walls. I moved cautiously, my footsteps echoing in the silence as I searched for the source of the cry. But as I ventured deeper into the room, the darkness seemed to grow denser, enveloping me like a suffocating blanket. And then, just as I began to fear that I was alone in the gym, I heard it again, a soft, plaintive whimper that seemed to come from the very walls themselves. Heart pounding, I followed the sound, my senses on high alert as I searched for any sign of life in the empty room. But what I encountered in that shadowed space defied all logic and reason. As I rounded a corner, I came face to face with a figure, a woman, her face twisted in agony as she writhed on the cold tile floor. With a gasp of horror, I recoiled, my mind struggling to comprehend what I was seeing. Was this some kind of twisted prank? Or had I stumbled upon something far more sinister lurking in the darkness of the gym? With trembling hands, I reached for my phone, ready to call for help. But as I glanced back at the woman, a chill ran down my spine, a sense of dread unlike anything I had ever felt before. It was as if the very air around her pulsed with malevolent energy, warning me to stay away. But I knew I couldn't leave her there, alone and in pain. With a deep breath, I approached cautiously, reaching out to offer what little comfort I could. And then, as my hand brushed against her arm, she vanished into thin air, leaving me standing alone in the darkness, shaken to my core. As I stumbled out of the locker room and into the safety of the gym's main lobby, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just witnessed something beyond my understanding, that the gym was haunted by forces far beyond my comprehension. And as I locked up for the night and made my way home, I couldn't help but wonder what other horrors lurked in the shadows of that deserted building.